Yeah. Yeah, man.
My friends and I used to have this thing with Kinder eggs. For those who aren't lucky enough to have these in their country, well, they are basically hollow, egg-shaped chocolates with little plastic capsules in the middle with toys in them. If one of us went to the shop, we'd buy enough eggs for the rest of the house. If we were at the supermarket, we'd see if they had the cheap deals on the multi-packs. Now, we weren't buying them for the admittedly delicious chocolate. No, we were really in it for the toys. Considering most of us were 20-something-year-old students, it does seem a bit odd that we were so excited about these cheap pieces of plastic. But, for some reason, we got hours of entertainment out of those things. Not just the toys themselves, of course, but the excitement and anticipation that came with seeing who got the best toy from their egg. The best toys were the ones that had moving parts, or the ones that you could throw at each other. Like parachute army men or those plastic frisbee things. And the booby prizes were definitely the tiny 8-piece jigsaw puzzles. Whoever was unlucky enough to get one of those was mocked mercilessly. And woe betide the person who brought home a crappy puzzle egg. I was lying on the sofa in our lounge when my housemate charged in through the door and threw something at me. I somehow managed to catch it and opened my hands to see a slightly squashed kindersuprised egg in my palms. "Oh, cool. Thanks. Cheers, Kelly." I gave her a thumbs up before setting the egg on the table.
Wait for me to put the rest of my shopping away. I want to open them at the same time.
Kelly said, wiggling an egg of her own at me. We sat down at the table and tore into our eggs. Kelly opened her toy first.
Oh, fuck.
She hissed, dropping the pieces of a tiny jigsaw on the table. I tried to hold back the mocking until after opening my egg. Premature mocking would almost definitely jinx me into the same shitty puzzle toy-based fate. I popped open the chocolate egg. I took out the capsule. I shook it. Whatever was inside felt heavier than a puzzle. I began to smile. I opened the capsule right in front of Kelly and tipped out the contents on the table, feeling victorious.
What the fuck is that?
Kelly gasped. On the table was a small gray lump. I picked it up. Now, on a closer inspection, it appeared to be a tiny plastic hippo, covered in some sort of felted material.
That's almost worse than a puzzle.
And Kelly cackled as I checked the capsule for any other parts that might make this toy a bit less shitty. But no such luck. Thanks anyway, Kelly. I laughed, picking up some chocolate to eat. Kelly had had enough and she said she was ready to start making dinner with the other things that she had bought from the shop. So I picked up my hippo toy and I went upstairs to my room. Now on the way to my room, I had an idea. Listening for just a moment to check to see if Kelly was still downstairs, I walked over to her room. I placed the hippo gently on the handle of her door. I thought she'd find it funny to come back to. Now this little thing just perched on her door handle. I certainly thought it looked quite comical, standing there on all fours on that little metal ledge. I figured, well, if this toy was shitty, may as well try my best to have some fun with it. Now, I guess an hour or so later, I hear Kelly walking along the hallway past my room. Moments later, I hear her howl with laughter.
Very funny.
She yelled through the wall.
You may have gotten me this time, but you'll be getting this back very soon.
The next morning came and I went into the bathroom, opening the medicine cabinet. I was startled to see, guess what? A little gray hippo face staring back at me from on top of my toothpaste. I picked up the hippo and smiled. Maybe this wasn't a bad toy after all. Now soon, this became something of a game, and the rest of our housemates joined in. It took Seth, another of our housemates, a week to find the hippo inside one of his shoes. Amy, who spent a lot of time in London seeing her boyfriend, was greeted by our hippo friend sitting inside a baking tray when she went into her kitchen cupboard to find a frying pan. And Kelly always found the hippo the fastest. It was almost as if she was constantly looking for it. Now, I seem to get targeted the least by the hippo game, but I always try my best to find the most amusing places when it came to my turn. One of the rare weekends that Amy wasn't in London with her boyfriend, we decided to get out of the house one night and go out to a club in town. Now, a few hours into our festivities, and 3/4 of the way through a bottle of red wine, I noticed that I was having a bit of difficulty pouring wine from my bottle into my glass. Holding it up to the kitchen light, worried a piece of cork was getting stuck in the neck, I was shocked to see a distinctly hippo-shaped silhouette floating on the top of the remaining wine. Considering it was getting stuck in the neck, I was amazed of the ingenuity of whoever managed to brute force that thing into the main part of the bottle. We all oohed and awed at one of the most hilarious and clever hiding places yet. There was one issue though. How were we going to get it out? Especially in this drunken state. But Seth spoke up and said he had an idea.
Let me see the bottle.
He slurred, waving at me to hand it over, which I promptly did.
Oh yeah, and pass me a towel or something.
Seth took the bottle outside via the back door into the garden, and we followed. And Kelly appeared moments later with a towel from the bathroom and handed it to Seth. And Seth wrapped his hand in the towel and grabbed the bottle of the neck.
Oh, yeah, okay. Stand back,
he yelled before bringing the bottle down hard on the floor. Glass flew everywhere. Amy and I clapped and gofled as the hippo slid out onto the concrete floor in a puddle of red wine. Kelly went to pick it up, but was stopped in her tracks when she noticed Seth crouched on the floor, clutching his hand, out of which was sticking out a huge piece of green glass. I can remember the blood from his hand dripping down to the hippo and mixing in with the red wine. The rest of our night was spent at the emergency room instead of the club. Seth was fine. The glass hadn't cut anything major, but the cut was certainly deep. He needed stitches. With the hippo, I decided to leave the hippo at the house to sit there and dry outside. All in all, we had a good laugh about it once we knew Seth was going to be fine. I woke up the next morning with the world's worst hangover, and clutching my churning stomach, I rolled over to check the time on my alarm clock. It was still way too early to be up on a Sunday morning. I dragged myself up anyway, feeling the need to stretch a little. While I sat up, I noticed that one of my stuffed toys I kept on my shelf had fallen on the floor. It was a soft brown bear. It was one that I have had over a decade. It really has sentimental value. I reached across my floor, trying my best to stay under the warm bed covers. I picked it up and gave it a big squeeze, for nostalgia reasons. Then I frowned. Something was odd here, so I squeezed the bear again. It didn't feel right. It did not feel right at all. There was something hard in the middle of the bear that hadn't been there before. I thought for a second that maybe this was one of those talking bears with the speaker lodged inside, but it didn't make any sounds when I squeezed it, and I didn't recall it being that kind of bear. Geez, I've had it for a very long time. My head swimming, I opened my dressing table and reached in for some nail scissors. I flipped the bear around and began to cut along the seam at the back. Picking through the stuffing, I froze as I saw a familiar gray lump nestled in the white cotton. Now, annoyed that my housemates had come into my private room without my permission, let alone cut up a childhood toy of mine, I forced myself out of bed to confront them. Fueled by my hangover, perhaps I was more grouchy than I would have been normally, but something about this felt really malicious. The rest of my housemates were all sat in the kitchen with cups of tea as I stumbled in. I slammed the hippo on the table. Okay, who was the last one with the hippo? They all looked at me puzzled.
That's against the rules, isn't it? Asking who hit it?
Kelly asked, sipping her tea. Amy nodded, and Seth shrugged. I didn't even know there were rules, he said, looking nervously at the hippo in my hand. Anyway, why do you ask? Okay, so whoever hid this in my room, I said, aggressively waving the hippo at my friends. "You have overstepped a boundary. You shouldn't be going into private people's domain, let alone cutting open their toys." Kelly choked on her tea.
What? Your toys? Are you 12?
I narrowed my eyes at Kelly. I didn't know Kelly to be a good actress, but she had always been a bit more daring with her hiding places.
Besides,
She said, putting her mug down on the table.
I haven't had time to go into your room. As far as I know, it was on the side in the kitchen at 4 a.m. when we got back from the hospital, and I went straight to bed.
"Yeah," piped up Seth. "And look, my hand is way too messed up to," he paused, "cut anything up." Amy had remained silent. "Okay, well, Amy, you got anything to say?" She looked up at me, frowning.
Didn't you go straight to your room when you got back? I'm way too clumsy to have snook in your room while you slept to hide that thing. It wasn't me.
All three of them sat in awkward silence for just a moment. I huffed. "Well then, I'm not sure I want to play this game anymore, if that's how it's gonna be." I threw the hippo down on the table. And Kelly, she went to say something, but I didn't hear her because I slammed the kitchen door behind me. On Monday evening, I was in the kitchen unpacking after a day at my part-time job. It had been a colleague's birthday at work, and I'd been given the remnants of a birthday cake I brought home. It was a pretty big cake from the cash and carry. There were a lot of staff members at my job, lots of hungry mouths to feed, but there was still plenty left for me and my housemates.
Ooh, can I have a slice?
And Kelly chimed as she breezed into the kitchen.
Classes were killer today and I am starving.
My mood, well, really hadn't improved since the bear incident, although I had noticed that the hippo hadn't resurfaced since Sunday morning, and it was gone from the table. I was so hoping they had been smart and had either thrown it out or were just sticking to playing with each other. Still, I faked a smile and cut Kelly a slice of cake. She grabbed the cake from me and took a bite, saying,
Thanks,
through a mouthful of crumbs. She was about to take a second bite when I saw her face fall.
Really? You think this is okay?
She looked up at me and then back at the cake in her hands. I raised my brows. What? She plucked something from the middle of the slice.
This!
She hissed, waving something small and gray in my face. The fucking hippo.
Yeah, don't play stupid with me.
She started pouting, dumping the rest of the cake onto the kitchen counter.
I get that you're angry, but Jesus, this is a bit much. You could have choked me.
What? Look, I swear, Kelly, I didn't do it. I said, staring at the hippo between her fingers. Look, I stopped playing, remember? Oh, besides, after everything that's happened, with my toy, even with Seth's hand, why would I do something so stupid? Kelly, she looked confused for a moment, before her face softened.
Yeah, you're right.
She sighed, twirling the hippo in her hand.
I'm not going to stop playing, though.
She put the hippo in her pocket.
I'll make sure we're more sensible with where we put it.
I didn't really reply back to Kelly. If anyone hid it from me to find, and I found it, I thought to myself, it was going in the trash. That was it. That next weekend, after a hippo-free week, all of us were surprised to get a Facebook message from Amy. She was in London with her boyfriend, and it was very rare for her to try to get in contact with us when she was spending time with him. She told us to check her Facebook wall. She had posted a photo, and lo and behold, it was the damn hippo, covered in some sort of brown powder. Now, it turned out that she found it inside a tube of hot chocolate powder. Now, the crazy thing about it, though, was that it was her boyfriend's stuff, not hers. Amy was flustered and wanted to know which one of us had posted it to him and how we had gotten him on it, because he was apparently denying everything. We all said we had no idea. I definitely didn't have no idea, and emphasized again how done I was with the game. Amy said she was gonna leave the hippo in London. Kelly protested. I closed my computer before I could see the conversation go any further, and made damn sure my bedroom door was locked before putting myself crumply to bed. As expected, the next week went hippo-free. When Amy came back on Monday morning, she told me she left it down there with her boyfriend. She says she felt too nostalgic about it as a fun part of our friendship to just throw it away, but wanted to give me a break. I thanked her for being considerate and breathed a sigh of relief. I was sitting in the lounge. I felt like I was finally going to get some peace from that damn hippo game. I was sitting kinda cross-legged on the sofa, reading some stuff on my laptop, when I heard a commotion from upstairs. Now, I assumed it was just Amy making a mess until someone came crashing through the lounge door. I couldn't tell who it was at first, but whoever they were making horrible wheezing noises. I put my laptop down and rushed over. It was Kelly. She was trying to speak, but no words came out, just gurgling and coughing. She was now rolling around on the floor, clawing at her throat, her face bright red, eyes wide with fear. Oh my god, Kelly was choking. I was on the phone with the paramedics before I had consciously thought about it. Kelly was barely conscious now. Her lips were blue. Her arms started to twitch involuntarily. The ambulance came within minutes, but it was too late. She stopped breathing. Her eyes had rolled into the back of her skull. Her limbs were contorted into horrible, unnatural shapes. Her hands wrapped around her throat. The following days were a blur. Thankfully, Seth and Amy were much more together than I was, as they kept me somewhat functional while we were waiting for the results of the autopsy. Police had come around to ask us a few questions, but left us alone when it became clear it was just a tragic accident, they said. 7 days after Kelly's death, there was a knock on the front door. I crouched downstairs and opened it. The cheerful postman wordlessly handed me a bunch of letters, as well as a small package, for which I had to sign. It wasn't addressed to anyone in particular in the house, but I assumed it was one of the many things I had forgotten that I ordered off eBay. I tore the package open and grimaced as the content fell on the floor. It was that fucking hippo. I picked it up. Its small, gray face was worn now, and it was covered with stains. Blood, wine, cake, even the hot chocolate powder. And amusingly morbid thought crossed my mind. For all the trouble this hippo had caused, I was starting to see why kindersuprised eggs were illegal in the US. The fond memories of Kelly and her love for the hippo game brought back some of the happiness I felt before her unfortunate death. I took the hippo into the lounge and placed it on the table, thinking of the funniest places I'd managed to hide it, trying hard not to remember the bad ones. I was soon startled out of my daydream by someone at the door. I scooped up the hippo, out of habit, and wandered back to the front hall. This time, I was greeted by 2 uniformed police officers, the ones who had spoken to us previously this week. Hello, Taylor. We have some news about your housemate. I gulped, clutching harder onto the hippo for comfort. Okay, so what's happening? I thought we were all finished. The police looked at each other. Well, the autopsy report came back. We now have reason to believe that Kelly's death was, well, in fact, a homicide. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. Well, just not only that, but someone ended up tampering with the evidence, and well, we were just wondering if you could possibly help us identify something. Now, one of the officers reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a grainy photocopy. It was a copy of an X-ray of a person's throat. It was Kelly's throat. There was a white mass where there should have been black space. Far down her trachea, something was definitely lodged right in there, halfway down her windpipe. I squinted, and it was a weird shape, kind of lumpy, but with 4 distinctly uniform bumps, and a bigger lump at one end. Kind of hippo-shaped. Now, continued the officer as I held it together as best I could, I understand this may be hard, but we want to know. Have you any idea what this object may be? Oh, didn't they take it out of her? You know, to find out? I stammered, clutching harder at the hippo hidden in my hand. The officer grimaced and shook his head. Well, you know, that's what we mean when we say tampered evidence. They, the doctors, opened up her throat the next day to have a look. After the results of the x-ray, there was nothing there. Yeah, the other officer added, shifting nervously on his feet. There were still signs that something had been there, but no signs of attempted removal of any kind, and no leads. Which is why we're back here. Now we understand she was also your friend, so we kinda want you to be kept up in the loop with what's going on with the investigation. We also have a few more questions for you. Okay, so first of all, we'd like to know who else had been in the house on the day of Kelly's death. The officers asked me a few more questions, then asked to speak to my roommates. I sat alone in that lounge, and clinging on to that tiny hippo. The police, well, they eventually left the house, and Amy and Seth, they stayed in their rooms. Well, it was clear to me now. I was stuck with this hippo forever. The game had started, and I wasn't going to stop. I walked over to the kitchen counter and opened the drawer. Filing through the various cutlery, I had picked out a particularly sharp knife. Holding the knife tightly in one hand and the hippo in the other, I left the lounge and ascended the stairs. I approached Amy's bedroom door and knocked. I gripped the knife tighter. Hey, Amy, can I speak with you for just a second? I invented the hippo game, and I was going to win. Hello monsters, I really hope you enjoyed the story. Let's also give a big shout out to CreepStreet, aka Danny, for doing such a wonderful job voicing over Kelly and Amy. Monsters, you gotta go check out her channel, and if you like her creepy content, make sure you subscribe to her. Also monsters, if you haven't done so yet, be sure to subscribe to Yeah Man TV. Have any of you ever had a Kinder egg? What was the creepiest or weirdest thing you ever found in one? Well, okay monsters, again big thanks, and until next time.